Want to bring in now MSNBC host and former trial attorney Katie Phang, who's outside the courthouse for us in Atlanta. Atlanta Journal Constitution political reporter Greg Bluestein, former DeKalb County District Attorney Robert James, and former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner. Katie, let me start with you on this one. Every other co-defendant and their legal team are going to be keeping a close eye on what plays out this afternoon. If you will, set the stage for us.
Sure. So at 1 o'clock, Judge Scott McAfee, who is the presiding judge in a 19 co-defendant RICO case being prosecuted by DA Fani Willis, will conduct a hearing behind me at the Fulton County Courthouse. Now, of those 19, 6 have filed motions to sever, but only one currently has a trial date, and that is Kenneth Chesebro, and that's October 23rd. Now, what's important about today's hearing is not only is it going to be the first time that the entire proceedings will be broadcast live from inside of the courtroom, but DA Fani Willis has been ordered by the judge to appear today to be able to explain a good faith estimate of how long it would take to try all 19 of these defendants together. In the alternative, she's also been ordered to explain to the court what would a trial look like if you were to parse them out, if you were to try them separately. In other words, if you were to grant some of those motions to sever. Now, I also want to note that of those 6 defendants, Yasmin, some of them are asking to be severed from all of the other co-defendants in this case. But some of them are saying, you know what, I only want to be severed from those that have demanded a speedy trial. And that would be Kenneth Chesebro and Sidney Powell. Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, is one of those defendants who's saying, I do not want to go to trial in any speedy fashion whatsoever. Of course, that was predictable from that particular defendant. But we're going to see exactly how much of Fani Willis's case she's going to reveal to the court in terms of exhibits and witnesses to be able to determine whether or not all of them go to trial or some of them go piecemeal.
So a couple things to get through there, Glenn. I want to start off with you talking about the possibility of the speedy trial versus pushing this thing down the road, right? The former president wanting to push this thing as far down the road as he can, I think, initially proposed to be 2026 or something like that. We know Eastman as well, not wanting a speedy trial. Chesebro, as Katie just mentioned, wanting a speedy trial, looking at an October trial date here. What are the advantages and disadvantages here for a speedy trial?
I mean, one of the advantages to going to trial first. Now, let me hasten to add, most defendants want to go second, third, or last. Why? Because they can preview the prosecution's evidence. Whoever goes to trial first, and right now it is only Chesebro who is set for that October trial date. I suspect that Powell may be added in because she has made a speedy trial demand. If other defendants want a speedy trial, they will likely be added to that October 23rd trial date. The defendants who go to trial first are probably going to suffer a really vigorous, aggressive, fulsome presentation by Fani Willis's prosecutors, because the last thing prosecutors want to do is lose the first trial out of the gate. So, but then there is an upside to going first. And here's what it is. Some of these defendants will be able to make what I call the empty chair defense. Let me take Chesebro as an example. He may say, listen, I may have doodled a couple of things about this alternate elector scheme, but you know what? It was constitutional professor and dean of the law school, John Eastman, who really told me it was on sound constitutional footing. So I'm really a victim of John Eastman's crimes and bad conduct. I've seen that empty chair defense work, where if not all co-defendants are at counsel table together, the ones who are there will point the fingers at the empty chairs and say, they're the bad actors, don't hold me accountable.
How likely is it that if we're looking at some of our attorneys here, Glenn, Chesebro, for example, Sidney Powell, John Eastman, I believe, has said he will not be taking a plea deal here. He's already made that clear. How likely is it folks like that would take a plea deal, considering it means they would have to plead guilty and they would subsequently be disbarred?
It is likely. Here's why I say it is likely. I handled lots of co-defendant cases, conspiracy cases, and RICO cases. And before the indictments start dropping, being issued by the grand jury, it is all theoretical to these potential defendants. Once they see their name in black and white on the wrong side of the V, state of Georgia versus the named defendants, it gets very real, and that's when often the flipping begins, the cooperation begins, the guilty pleas begin. So I think particularly the fake electors are ripe for the picking, and they may be some of the people who are first to flip and cooperate. And they've already gone on record, some of them, Yasmin, is saying, you know what, I was acting at Donald Trump's direction.
Robert James, I got a big one for you here. I'm going to ask you to do what Fani Willis and her team have been asked to present today at 1 p.m., and that is, what would it look like trying all of these co-defendants together versus the timing of severing these cases, which is what many of them want?
Well, it's essentially one big, long trial that will last several months, right? It's going to get confusing. You've got to parse evidence out, and there are a lot of things that you have to look at, making sure that you're not introducing evidence that's admissible against one person and not against another. And so it's very complicated. Well, when you separate these trials, or sever these trials, as it were, and have individual trials, it's also going to take a long time, but the individual trial will not be as long. So there's no short way to do this. One way, you do it one time and you're in trial for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, perhaps even longer. The other way is that you do it several times, and it's going to take as long, if not longer, to try individual trials. I can tell you the prosecutor is going to want to try this case one time and one time only. You don't want to do it 4 and 5 and 6 times. That's why she charged RICO as opposed to charging these people individually. But
this is something that Fani Willis is used to, correct? Especially with these racketeering charges.
Yeah, look, Fulton County has brought racketeering charges, one of the most, famous ones here locally that did not involve people that were violent was the case against the school system, where she was an assistant DA to the prior DA, and she was actually lead counsel in that case. And so look, Georgia RICO has been used this way. Fani Willis has used Georgia RICO this way, but she tried one case and not several little cases. And I will say is that the school system case, in terms of the complexity of the evidence and the way it's going to need to be presented, it pales in comparison as opposed to what has to happen here.
Greg, I'm interested as to how, especially independent voters, Georgia voters, are feeling about how this is all playing out in their state, right? We are here because Donald Trump needed Georgia in 2020. And Donald Trump is going to need Georgia in 2024 if, in fact, he secures the nomination for the Republican Party. Georgia is the spotlight of this thing. If you're talking to voters on the ground there, Republican voters, independent voters specifically, how are they feeling about this as it plays out?
Yasmin, you're right. Republicans see Georgia as nothing short of a must-win in 2024. There's really no path to the presidency, even according to many White House hopefuls, without winning Georgia back into the Republican column. And the Atlanta Journal-Constitution just came out with a poll that showed a significant number of Republican voters do view these charges politicized. That's not a shock, but also as serious. Which is significant, the fact that so many Republicans are seeing these charges as potential impediments to Donald Trump's comeback, and they think that it could weaken his 2024 chances against President Joe Biden if he does secure the nomination. So you can't avoid it in Georgia, just like you can't avoid it around the nation. It is on the top of mind of voters, whether there's hearings or whether there's a trial going on or just motions. This cannot be avoided, and it's so front and center to so many Georgia voters right now.
Glenn, you brought this up a little bit earlier, but it's got to be part of the calculation for the former president's attorneys, and that is how many folks are actually going to flip between now and when he actually makes it to trial, right? And how much of a liability is that for the former president?
Oh, it's an enormous liability. I have a hard time believing that the attorneys who represent either the Georgia state fake electors or Mark Meadows or some of the other players, in this sad affair, they're going to be zealously representing their clients. And I have to believe they're going to be exploring with DA Willis and her team the possibility of a cooperation agreement, a guilty plea, accepting responsibility for the piece that you are responsible for, and testifying truthfully against others. Those guilty pleas with cooperation, those are the best ways to minimize your criminal exposure and, in a very real sense, your possible prison term. So I have to believe that folks are not going to be interested in going down with Donald Trump, but rather they're going to try to save themselves.